योऽन्ता प्रविश्य मम वाचमिमां प्रसुप्तान् सञ्जीवयत किल शक्तिधरा स्वधाम्ना अन्यांश्च हस्तचरणश्रवणात् त्वगादीन् प्राणान् नमो भगवते पुरुषाय तुभ्यम् कथाञ्चना स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्करं सुकरं भवेत् विस्मृते विपरीतं स्यात् श्रीचैतन्या नमामितम्। Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam class. We'll continue with our discussion from the first canto, 9th chapter. Today we'll be discussing the 16th and the 17th verse. So this chapter is very special because we saw the beginning how Bhishma welcomes everyone, and especially Pandavas led by Krishna go to meet, Pandavas led by Krishna go to meet Bhishma Pitama. And not only both of them and the Pandavas, but also the great sages from all over the universe come to hear from Bhishma. And Bhishma welcomes everyone according to time, place, and circumstances. And then Bhishma begins his instructions in the 6 verses, 12 to 17. And in the first 2 verses, 12 and 13, he sympathizes with the situation of the Pandavas. And then we discussed in 14 and 15 how Bhishma explains, this is what we discussed last time, the influence of irreversible time, how time is very powerful. And today, the 16th and 17th verse, we will see how Bhishma Pitama will explain that we should accept the Lord's plan and know that it is inconceivable and follow it. So like every time, because this is a section which contains 6 verses, we will chant all the 6 verses. One of you will read the translations. Who will read today? Yes, you will read. Palak Prabhu. Okay. Palak Prabhu will read the translations. And then we will zoom into 16 and 17. So please repeat after me. Text number 12. Aho kashtam aho nyayam. Aho kashtam aho nyayam. Yadyuyam dharmanandana. Yadyuyam dharmanandana. Jivitum narahata klishtam. Jivitum narahata. Vipradharma chutashraya. Vipradharma chutashraya.
Vishwadev said, "Oh, what terrible sufferings and what terrible injustices you good souls suffer for being the sons of religion personified. You did not deserve to remain alive under those tribulations, yet you were protected by the Brahmanas, God and religion."
Text 13. Samtite tirate pando. Prita bala prajavadhu. Yusmatrite bahum kleshan. Praptato kavati muhu.
As far as my daughter-in-law Kunti is concerned, upon the great general Pandu's death, she became a widow with many children, and therefore she suffered greatly. And when you were grown up, she suffered a great deal also because of your actions.
Text 14. Sarvam kala kritam manye.
Sarvam kala kritam manye.
Bhavatam chayada priyam.
Bhavatam chayada priyam.
Sapalo yad vashe loko.
Sapalo yad vashe loko.
Vayoriva ghanavali.
Vayoriva ghanavali.
In my opinion, this is all due to inevitable time, under whose control everyone in every planet is carried, just as the clouds are carried by the wind.
Text 15. Yatra dharma suto raja. Kada panirrukodara. Vishnu trigandivam chapam. Suhut Krishna stato vipa.
Oh, how wonderful is the influence of inevitable time. It is irreversible. Otherwise, how can there be reverses in the presence of King Yudhishthira, the son of the demigod controlling religion, Bhima, the great fighter with a club, the great bowman Arjuna with his mighty weapon Gandiva, and above all the Lord, the direct well-wisher of the Pandavas.
Text 16. Nayasya karihi chedrajan Puman Veda Viditsitam Yad Vijigyasaya Yukta Muyanti Kavayopihi.
O king, no one can know the plan of the Lord, Sri Krishna, even though great philosophers inquire exhaustively, they are bewildered.
Text 17. Tasmadidam devatantram Vyavasya Bharatarshava Tasyad Vihito Natha Natapai Prajaprabho.
O best among the descendants of Bharat, I maintain, therefore, that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless.
Yes. So we are now in the 16 and 17 where Krishna is saying, Bhishma is saying, please accept the inconceivable plan of Krishna and accept it. Just follow this plan. Because we may try to figure out, but we will not understand completely. Many times we say, no, ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? भगवान ने ऐसा क्यों किया? Analysis करते हैं. He's saying we will not understand. So we'll go back to text number 16. You see what Krishna is saying, Bhishma is saying here. Nayasya karechit rajan. Nobody can know. Yad vijigyasaya yukta. Why? Muyanti kavayopi. Great intelligent people get bewildered by Krishna's plan. So even though great philosophers inquire, they are bewildered. So purport is very beautiful. I was thinking we will read it together so that we all can enter that space. Okay? So I will start. You can read with me. The bewilderment of Maharaj Yudhishthir over his past sinful acts and the resultant sufferings, etc., is completely negated by the great authority, Bhishma, one of the 12 authorized persons. Bhishma wanted to impress upon Maharaj Yudhishthir that since time immemorial, no one, including such demigods as Shiva and Brahma, could ascertain the real plan of the Lord. And so, what can we understand about it? It is useless also to inquire about it. Even the exhaustive philosophical inquiries of sages cannot ascertain the plan of the Lord. The best policy is simply to abide by the orders of the Lord without argument. The sufferings of the Pandavas were never due to their past deeds. The Lord had to execute the plan of establishing the kingdom of virtue, and therefore his own devotees suffered temporarily in order to establish the conquest of virtue. Bhishma Dev was certainly satisfied by seeing the triumph of virtue, and he was glad to see King Yudhishthira on the throne, although he himself fought against him. Even a great fighter like Bhishma could not win the battle of Kurukshetra because the Lord wanted to show that vice cannot conquer virtue, regardless of who tries to execute it. Bhishma was a great devotee of the Lord, but he chose to fight against the Pandavas by the will of the Lord, because the Lord wanted to show that a fighter like Bhishma cannot win on the wrong side. You see, Bhishma is very emphatically saying this verse, no one can understand the plan of Krishna. Krishna is, see, at the point of suffering, when we are going through the suffering, we don't understand. Not only we don't understand the plan of the Lord, we don't even understand that it is the plan of the Lord. Like we can't accept that God may want it, right? But later on, I don't know if you have realized it, that in retrospect, when we see the situations of our life, we feel it was good what happened. At that point, many times, we don't realize it when we are in the middle of the situation. We think how unfortunate it is. But after some years, when you look back, we realize it was good what we went through. I don't know if you have gone through such experiences. I have gone through many experiences like this, which I thought was very unfortunate when I was in the middle of that experience. Now, when I look back, I am able to see that wow, अच्छा हो गया वो कृष्णा का एक अच्छा plan था. Now, unfortunately, I'm not able to share those experiences in this class because I'm a public figure. It will go online. Maybe offline I can share. So I want to know, do you have any example like this in your life, which you thought was very painful at that moment when you were going through it? And later on, when you, in hindsight, जब हम देखते हैं ना पीछे, अरे ऐसा, you feel it is not so unfortunate. It was actually good because that helped you come closer to Krishna. I mean, do you feel little happy or that, okay, it was Krishna's plan that got executed? I don't want you to forcefully accept some situation like that, but if it is there, okay, not, I don't want to hear you right now. I will hear you, but can we, for a few seconds, just close your eyes and think of some event in your life which you thought was unfortunate, but now you feel it was good that it happened. Please meditate and think. Don't listen to the kirtan that's going on in the next room. Okay, thank you. I'm sure at least one incident in your life. If it is not very embarrassing or complicated, can you share here? I saw Prabhu. I saw your hand. Yes. Can you share?
Only way back 1994, uh, we were staying out here only, and for some reason we had a joint family only. And, my father bought the place where we stay. We were staying in a joint family with my father and his brothers and all. And way back in the 94, my cousin shifted suburbs, and we were staying here. And my father bought this flat because of which we had some financial crisis. And 2004, I was insistent to my father that we sell this flat, and but it did not get sold. And today, I bless myself that the reason why it didn't get sold was probably we were supposed to get connected to Stormship Park.
Yeah, beautiful example. Prabhu is saying that when he was in 2004, he wanted this house to be sold, that they could go to the suburbs, but it didn't get sold. He was not happy at that time. Now he's looking back and saying, good, because of that house not being sold, he's able to come to temple and is able to connect to Krishna. So this is a beautiful example. So this is exactly what I was thinking of. We can take one or two more examples like this, which in the middle of the situation you thought it is not good, but in hindsight you feel, हाँ जो हुआ वो अच्छा हुआ उस समय जो कृष्णा का प्लान था. Anybody would like to share? Yes.
Without
You start, Mike will come.
so those when I was doing MBA, like my dream company was Microsoft, but I wanted to come to Mumbai.
When I am Bangalore.
I am Bangalore. So my first preference was to come back to Mumbai, but then Mumbai does not have tech companies that way. So I actually cleared all the interviews of Microsoft, and there was some glitch in the scoring that they were doing. Actually, there were two Shubhams who were giving the interviews. And my name was Shubham Gole, the other person was Shubham Rajput something. And they got somehow confused. And that person gave a bad interview, I gave a good interview. His score got noted in my name. So even though I cleared all the rounds, in final round there was some mishap and I could not get into Microsoft. And so I was very disappointed. But finally, like after 2-3 companies, this Angel one, now the company in which I am working, that came. And I was at that time I was not very sure whether I want to get in here or not. But when I applied, I got in here. Like now when I'm working, so I got the opportunity to come back home. That company is very close to my house also in Worli.
Beautiful.
And so in like money wise also, opportunity wise also, this company is doing very good because it is in fintech space. So I was very disappointed at that point of time.
But
Now, yeah,
beautiful example.
my friend from Microsoft is asking for a referral.
Wow.
Beautiful example. So when we are in that mess, we are confused. But when we look back, अरे यार वो भगवान का special arrangement. So it was Microsoft's loss that they lost you. They couldn't get you. Thank you. Any one more example we can take? Yes, Prabhu.
almost in the lines of what Shubham said. Way back in 2000, probably, yeah. I was doing my CA, and I went for an interview with one of the big four firms, KPMG. And being a typical South Mumbai fellow, we have that, one dream firm, जिसमें जाना है.
KPMG.
KPMG. A lot of my friends, they gave the interview. Half of them cleared. They got into it, and I got a rejection, a call. So that day in the afternoon, I went to temple to chant my rounds. So I met Gaur Gopal Prabhu. He saw me, he got depressed, दिख रहा है. So he told me what happened. That's probably I appeared for interview as a sort of don't worry, Krishna has some bigger plans for you. So I was like, I got some soothing. But then, if I look back, I thought if I would have been there, then whatever services I'm getting, the kind of progress I have made. I don't know how much progress I have made, but whatever. That was all because I was able to give enough time for my sadhana and as well as other activities which I'm supposed to do, being a grahastha or a student. And other friends, those who are still, those who are working, they left and they got married when I had a first child. So, so I was thinking myself very fortunate, and I thank Krishna and the devotees who gave me the right, knowledge and showed me the right path.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And some of you, if you are unable to think of this kind of examples in this category, then you can try one technique. If you start a gratitude journal every day, then a time will come in your life that when you look back, even at the most painful situations, you will be able to see something good. Many times people ask me, when we do gratitude workshop, people ask me, how can I be grateful for miserable situations in my life? So I say, forget it. You first be grateful for the happy situations in your life. First be grateful for what good you are getting in life. Then God will see your sincerity and will give you the intelligence to be grateful for those unfortunate events also. We directly jump to impossible situations. So first work on your circle of concern, circle of your influence. What you can. We can be grateful for all the blessings we are getting. Then Krishna will give us the intelligence to see how even the unfortunate events have a blessing. So therefore, this is a very important section where Bhishma is saying, Krishna's plan is happening. And if you see all sincere devotees, at some point of time, we want to be part of Krishna's plan. We want to fulfill Krishna's plan. So Bhishma is saying, be happy that Krishna's plan is happening. So you don't try to understand Krishna's plan. You just try to follow Krishna's plan. See, little bit you can understand. You should try to understand also. But when you try to understand too much, you will go crazy. See how someone will come closer to Krishna because of the reversals in their life. We cannot know. But if you have faith and if you have good association, then we will be able to continue. See, I'll give a simple thing. Can we say that Krishna gave me suffering? We can't say. See, if you think carefully, logically, can anyone say Krishna, actually he wants to give me suffering? We cannot say this because Krishna is Bhakta Vatsal. He loves his devotees. Why will he want to give devotees suffering? So this argument you cannot give. Krishna wants to give me suffering. We cannot give this up. But then can you say Krishna wants to give me only happiness? This is also wrong because Krishna only has said this world is dukkhalayam ashashvatam. So why Krishna will show you partiality? Why Krishna will give you happiness? So you cannot say Krishna wants to give me suffering because Krishna loves his devotees. You cannot say Krishna wants to give me happiness because this world Krishna has made not for happiness. Then some of you will say, actually Krishna wants to give me both happiness and distress. Well, this is also wrong because that is contradictory to Krishna's kind nature. Krishna is very kind. Why will he want to give you both? But then you will realize after all these analysis and speculations that you will be convinced that I cannot understand Krishna's plan. So you give up this analysis. And then sincerely have faith in Krishna that Krishna is bringing me closer to him. And this is the mood in which the next verse Bhishma speaks. So we'll chant this verse again, text number 17. Tasmadidam Devatantram
तस्मादिदुर्दैवतन्त्रम्
Vyavasya Bharatarshabha Tasyanu Natha Natapai Praja Prabhu. Can you?
O best among the descendants of Bharat, Yudhishthira, I maintain therefore that all this is within the plan of the Lord. Accepting the inconceivable plan of the Lord, you must follow it. You are now the appointed administrative head, and my Lord, you should now take care of those subjects who are now rendered helpless.
So look at the purport, what Srila Prabhupada is writing, a beautiful example. Let us read this together. The popular saying is that a housewife teaches the daughter-in-law by teaching the daughter. Similarly, the Lord teaches the world by teaching the devotee. The devotee does not have to learn anything new from the Lord because the Lord teaches the sincere devotee always from within. Whenever, therefore, a show is made to teach the devotee, as in the case of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, it is for teaching the less intelligent men. A devotee's duty, therefore, is to ungrudgingly accept tribulations from the Lord as a benediction. The Pandavas were advised by Bhishma Dev to accept the responsibility of administration without hesitation. The poor subjects were without protection due to the battle of Kurukshetra, and they were awaiting the assumption of power by Maharaj Yudhishthira. A pure devotee of the Lord accepts tribulations as favors from the Lord. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no mundane difference between the two. See, I want to say one thing very, very important right at the outset. See, when we read Bhagavatam, please know that there is a reality of life which Bhagavatam openly talks about. And this reality of life is called death. And unfortunately, no one talks about death. But Bhagavatam talks about death many times, repeatedly, openly. In fact, Bhagavatam begins with Parikshit Maharaj's death. Concern. So the story of Katwan Maharaj, who was about to die. He had just a moment to live. Then we have Bharat Maharaj, who couldn't remember the Lord during death. And then we have Gajendra's story, we have Chitraketu's story, we have Vritrasu's stories. So many pastimes surrounding death, right? Now, well, I remember once one devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what exactly is philosophy? What is the meaning of the word philosophy? All of you know this. We always talk about philosophy. What is ISKCON's philosophy? We ask. Similarly, once a devotee asked Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, what exactly is the meaning of philosophy? Prabhupada said, philosophy means to always keep death in front of you. To always know that everything is going to end. So what happens, unfortunately, we have a very active social life, all of us, let us admit. And even within Krishna consciousness, we have a very good social life. And devotees who come to ISKCON, their social life doesn't end. They still go for marriages, they still have parties, they still have very good social life, which is healthy, which is good. There is nothing wrong. But the problem is, when there is a very active and happy social life, it is easy to forget about this topic of death. So Bhagavatam class is when we remind. And not only Bhagavatam talks about death as the reality, Bhagavatam says before this death comes, there is a lot of suffering. And then death is the ultimate suffering. Right? So Krishna is teaching through Bhishma and Pandava's example that how suffering will come. And then there is ultimately death. And if we violate dharma, like in Bhishma's case, we will always be the losers. Okay, I have a question to all of you. These two verses we took today, 16th and 17th we are taking. What is the main theme of these two verses? Not Rajan Prabhu, not Mita Mataji. Anybody else? Hey, raise your hand if you know the answer. Yes. Yes, to accept the inconceivable plan of the Lord and follow it. Others don't remember. I've been speaking this in the last 6 classes, the main theme of this section. So to accept the Lord's plan and to follow it, we need to basically understand the principle of suffering little deeper. Because only when we understand and accept that what exactly is suffering, then we'll be able to accept the Lord's plan. Otherwise, we'll keep complaining about suffering. So let us spend some time now on understanding the suffering. All of you go through suffering, right? Suffering basically means to not get what we want and to get what we don't want, right? All of us go through suffering. Well, let us see Bhagavatam's perspective on what Bhagavatam talks about suffering. So there are three types of people who suffer. We have materialistic people who suffer, right? And why do materialistic people suffer? Because of the influence of the combination of three modes: time and karma. The combination of these three causes suffering for a person who is not practicing spiritual life. Now, this is one type of people who suffer, and there is a very interesting category of people who suffer, that is pure devotees, like Pandavas, Kunti. They also suffer, but their suffering is of different nature. What is their suffering? Krishna personally arranges. Bhishma is telling Pandavas, your suffering is arrangement of Krishna. Why? To teach the world. And what is the example Srila Prabhupada gives in this purport? Mother-in-law teaching the daughter-in-law. So that's very clear. Materialistic people suffer because of their actions, the combination of karma, time, and three modes. Pure devotee suffers because Krishna personally arranges to teach the world. And Brihad Bhagavatamrita gives a very interesting twist to this. Why pure devotees suffer? There's another reason, not only because Krishna arranges it. It is also because that suffering is stimulated by a devotee's action. Because a devotee is very anxious to see Krishna and serve Krishna. Because he or she is very anxious to serve Krishna, they take up certain situations or responsibilities or challenges and they perform action that causes many interesting reactions and brings suffering. The example given is of Yudhishthir Maharaj, who conducted Rajasuya sacrifice. I mean, he didn't have a need to. It's not that he wanted to conduct Rajasuya sacrifice for some name, honor, fame. The 72nd chapter of the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada very clearly writes that Yudhishthir Maharaj conducted Rajasuya sacrifice not because he wanted some material success, but because he wanted to establish how Krishna's devotees don't have the same goal like the materialistic people. He conducted this to establish how Krishna is good, Krishna is wonderful, and Krishna's devotees are always serving Krishna. So that stimulation, that desire, that anxious mood to serve Krishna brings resultant reactions. What happened because of that? Then Duryodhana became envious, and then all that pastime happened, then gambling match. So Brihad Bhagavatamrita says that this is also the reason why pure devotees suffer. But then there is a clarification. Pure devotees actually don't suffer. In that so-called suffering, they are actually enjoying. We can't understand how they are enjoying. We really can't understand. But they are having deep relationship with Krishna. The example I liked once, our Radhika Vallabh Prabhu gave. He said, in a train, there is unreserved compartment in India. Anybody traveled ever in unreserved compartment? I have traveled. It's horrible. And there is second class, then there is first class. Then now they don't have first class. When I was a small boy, they used to have first class. Then they have 3-tier AC, 2-tier AC, then they have first class AC coach, like that. All in the same train. And there is a gradation within that train, unreserved compartment and first class. Right? So there is clear category differentiation. But imagine there is a train, actually there is a cake made in the shape of a train. And that also has unreserved compartment, first class, everything is put there. So what is the difference in the coaches there? All are same. Even unreserved compartment will taste sweet. It will be cake. And then the first class coach will be cake only. So when pure devotees are suffering, it is like that cake. वहां पे suffering भी blissful है, वो cake ही है. In this world, there is duality, dvandva. But in the spiritual abode, the spiritual realm, pure devotee suffering, we cannot see it as suffering. It is not suffering. We can understand how because we are not on that level. But anyway, that is the second category. So what are the three categories of people who suffer? What is the first? Materialistic people. They suffer why? Because of karma, modes, and time. And pure devotees suffer because Krishna's arrangement and also because Brihad Bhagavatamrita says, because it is stimulated by their anxiety to please Krishna. And then we clarified how it is actually not suffering because it is like a cake made in the shape of a train. Everything there in that cake is sweet. Right? Now, there is third type of people who are suffering. Who are they? Who are we? Let us be not artificially humble. Let us be honest. We are sincere practitioners. Let us let us say we are all sincere. We may not be pure, right? We are not pure devotees, but we are sincere. And we are not like materialistic, gross materialistic. We may say out of humility, Prabhu, I'm fallen, I'm a pig, I'm worm in the stool, and all that we say. But from deep within, we want others to tell us you are very sincere, Prabhu. We want that encouragement. So let us tell ourselves only that I'm sincere. So we are this third category, sincere practitioner, right? We also suffer. Now, the three categories of people who are suffering is not same. All three are different. Ours is very different and very special and unique. So let us dive deep into this. Why we suffer or how we should see our suffering. Because all of us are sincere practitioners, right? So now, when we go through suffering as sincere practitioners, we should remember three principles. This is Krishna's arrangement. These three principles we should remember. And this will help us in the middle of that suffering. These three, actually, we cannot know what is Krishna's plan. I'm just sharing what Krishna has given us. Specifically, individually, we cannot say that these are the only three things you should remember when you are suffering. But these three are common for all sincere practitioners. But in a specific case, there may be some extra plan Krishna may have. You have to ask Krishna. That I cannot say. But there are something common for all of us who, as sincere Hare Krishna chanters, go through suffering. So three principles to remember when sincere practitioners go through suffering. The first is, remember, we are being trained by Krishna to become qualified to go to spiritual world. I'll repeat. The first principle is, when we go through suffering as sincere practitioners, we should remember, Krishna is training me to become qualified to go to spiritual world. Ultimately, this is the plan of Krishna. No? He wants us to come back to him, right? So to come back to him, he is going to put us through training. So what is the first principle we have to remember? We are being trained. I'm being trained by Krishna to become qualified to go back to spiritual world. But I know what you will say. I know what is the doubt in your mind right now. You are saying, but Prabhuji, the training is very tough. Kya karne ka? The training is very tough. I can't handle this training. Then remember four things. Aaj bahut technical hone wala. Three things, four things. And then again, second. After this fourth point, we'll go back to the second point. Remember, there are three principles you are supposed to remember. The first principle ke andar, if the training gets very tough, if Krishna's training gets very tough for us, then what we could remember, that very important point, first point you remember, we have to remember that, see, when we are going through a lot of suffering, we can understand that all the karma reactions, which is there in the seed form, bija, these karma reactions are burnt in this lifetime and we will not be adding any new karma. कम से कम खुश रहो यार, ये बहुत बड़ा चीज है. This is a big thing, isn't it? See, there are some reactions which are there in the seed form, वो अभी fructify होने वाला है. But all that is gone by Krishna's mercy. See, all reactions go away once we start sincerely practicing Bhakti Yoga, except Prarabdha. There is something Prarabdha which we, because of this body, there are some reactions we are going to get. This body we have. So that we will get, but nothing new we are adding. See, there are reactions which we are supposed to suffer in this body. That is Prarabdha, and that we will get, but the future reactions are destroyed. See, okay, let us understand what are the different types of reactions we get, karma. This is very simple. Once you know this, then you become peaceful when we go through suffering. There is something called as Sanchit. You know what is Sanchit karma? Stockpile. Sanchit karma is stockpile. We have a huge stockpile of karma. भर के है, which we are supposed to get for many lifetimes. Lot of sanchit karma is there. Now some of that is taken and given to us in this body, which will be exhausted in this body. Getting it? Clear? And what we are supposed to get in this body, that is called prarabdha. Everybody know the difference now between sanchit and prarabdha? Sanchit is the stockpile, and the tiny portion of that stockpile of karma is put into this body, and we experience that as prarabdha or reaction in this lifetime. Everybody clear? But there is a stockpile that will fructify in future, that will come one day. Right? So the one we are experiencing now is called prarabdha. And this one we have to experience. Because if you don't experience that, you will die. वो आपको बॉडी के साथ मिला है, वो तो अभी इसके साथ ही जाएगा. I hope you understand this. There is one more. संचित हो गया, प्रारब्ध हो गया. There is kriyamana karma. What is kriyamana karma? See, we create reactions by this body also. In this lifetime. In this lifetime, by this body, we create reactions for future. I hope you are clear. Right? That is kriyamana karma. So what are the three types? First is sanchit karma is what? Stockpile. Usme pe thoda portion prarabdha. And in that body, in this body, what we are doing? We are performing some action which will give us future reaction, which is called kriyamana karma. Right? So what happens when we become sincere practitioners? Any guesses what happens? The sanchit, the stockpile, and kriyamana, the reaction from this life, both are destroyed. Isn't that hope giving? But prarabdha है, अभी तो बॉडी के साथ आया है, मरने तक तो रहेगा, वो बॉडी है, या तो मर जाओ अभी, नहीं मरना मरो मत, but we don't want to commit suicide, we don't want to die. But the point is, it is there with this body. Alright? So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur gives a beautiful example to explain this. An arrow maker, very simple example. An arrow maker, he shoots an arrow also. The arrow is going. But he takes an arrow from his quiver, and there are a lot of arrows in the quiver. So he takes the arrow and he sharpens it. He's sharpening it. And then he's making it an arrow. He's an arrow maker. For the stock of arrows, it is called sanchit. And the one is sharpening now, that is called kriyamana. And the one is released, that is prarabdha. अभी जो arrow जा रहा है, you cannot do anything about it. It is going. You cannot say रुक जा, I will sharpen you. Yeah, stop, I'll put you in the quiver. That he cannot do. वो निकल गया. But there is arrows. There are arrows in the quiver, stockpile. And there is something which is sharpening now. Both can be stopped. Right? So, prarabdha cannot be avoided. That is what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. So, but the stockpile and new additions will stop. So, why I'm saying this is because when the training by Krishna becomes very tough, when you feel, remember we are discussing 3 principles to remember for a sincere practitioner, how this is Krishna's plan. How, to understand that, we have to understand that Krishna wants us to come back to him, and there is a training period going on. And when the training becomes very tough, this is what we can tell ourselves. That अरे सब कम से कम सब कर्मा तो जा रहे हैं. Second, yeah.
So, we spoke about this arrow maker. That is possible, like in a practical life, when something happens, immediately that means that you are getting entangled again. That means that kriya that is happened, right? But it's very spontaneous also. It just happens because of the nature also, because of the conditioning also. It's still not going so.
How do you know it is not going? Yeah, you are just in this body. You are just going through the motions of this body. You You have to have faith in Krishna. See, that's what I'm saying. Sincere practitioner means he has to know that Krishna will take care of. See, you are not, in fact, Rupa Goswami says that if somebody's life is in danger and he suddenly shouts to protect his life, he's not saying Krishna. So that non-remembrance of Krishna, that spontaneous attempt to protect his life is not outside the purview of pure devotional service. Because that is something basic, instinctual attempt to protect this body. So similarly, when you are living your life as a sincere devotee, and you may be sometimes, the course of your life, you may be doing some things, and if you get too mental about it and start thinking about every action, oh, I'm going to get reaction for this, then I have no answer for that. You have to see your whole life in a continuum, and you have to see it as Krishna is taking care. Krishna is reassuring, our acharyas are reassuring that your sanchit and kriyamana karma is exhausted. But if you insist it is not, then you be happy with that. And how it is not, if you're going to analyze, if you're going to get paralyzed by your analysis, then there's nothing that can be done about it. We need to have faith, and we need to be a sincere practitioner. For every day to day, in a day, 100 examples are there like that. You may have shouted at your child for something, then sir इसका reaction मिलेगा अभी चलते समय मैंने कुछ कर दिया, अरे उसका reaction मिलेगा, इसका reaction. Then I'm not the one to comment on that. But essentially, we should have that understanding that we are sincerely practicing and Krishna is taking care. That is the way we see. So this is the first point. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful.
You are get inspiration intelligence from inside. So what activities will bind us and
Beautiful. Dadami buddhi yogam tam enamam upayanti. Thank you for saying this. Krishna says in the Gita that he will give us the intelligence by which we know how not to get entangled, how to perform actions, what kind of services, activities to do which will not entangle us. Basically, if you are sincere sadhaka, then your kriyamana karma and sanchit karma is taken care. Prarabdha you have to go through, and what you are now worrying and suffering, it's also part of prarabdha. आपका जा रहा है चलने तो पूरा exhaust हो रहा है. So that cannot be avoided. Okay.
Also, there's a verse in the Bhagavad Gita, she said, the Prakriti is doing everything, but the Ahankar thinks that I am the doer. 3.20.
Yes. Yes. So that's what basically we are all saying the same thing. That there is more to it than you are not the doer. You don't have to worry so much about everything that you are doing, as long as you are sincerely practicing Krishna. Okay, you want to say something? You raised your hand.
To understand the examples of Prarabdha karma that comes with the body. You could give some examples that
Bodily defects, legal implications, poverty, wealth. Like I have an astrologer friend, very close. I didn't have much faith in astrology for many years. And he was my student only, and he learned astrology very well. And then one day he saw my chart and he told me something which nobody in this ISKCON world knows about my life, about something about my family, about my brothers. I was shocked. I thought, did I tell him sometime? How did he know this? So he said, प्रभु आपके चार्ट में लिखा है कि आपका ऐसा ऐसा है, आपके siblings के साथ ये. I thought, how do you know this? Did I ever tell you? नहीं प्रभु आपके चार्ट में लिखा है. And then I understood that is my prarabdha. I can't do anything about it. But I didn't believe him. So what I did, I secretly gave him the chart of one person I know who is financially very endowed, who is like very wealthy, one of the very, very, very wealthy person. But I didn't tell him whose chart it is. I just gave him the chart. I said, इसका देखो. He saw it and said, प्रभु कौन है? फिर I can't tell you. तुम बताओ क्या है उसका? So प्रभु जी बहुत पैसा है इसके पास. How do you know? Chart में लिखा. Without knowing his name, without knowing anything, he knew that इसमें है. प्रारब्ध लेके आया है वो पैसा. तो मैं कुछ कॉम्प्लिकेशंस लेके आया हूँ मेरे फैमिली लाइफ में. He has brought some money. ये प्रारब्ध में आता है एग्जाम्पल. ये उसके बॉडी के साथ रहेगा. So this is, see, don't get too much into it. We are right on a different topic. There is no end to this karma. Karma, because we all want a sense of control over our life. That's why we get deep into this question. But our mood here is not that. Our mood is how to handle suffering and when we are not able to accept that Krishna is training us to go back to spiritual world, then please remember that your karma is getting exhausted. And second, remember when the training gets very tough, please remember that if you sustain your bhakti chanting, you sustain coming for Mangalarti, you sustain your devotional service, then there is a deep peace that you will experience, which is different from stimulation. There is some deep satisfaction. And chanting will give us that feeling of being loved by Krishna. Whatever we are going through, see, if you are suffering, then chant more. And you won't get relief from the suffering by chanting more. Relief in the sense, you won't get relief like the way you get relief by watching a YouTube video or, some Instagram reels. But you get a deeper sense of satisfaction and connection with the Lord. We feel loved by Krishna, and that feeling loved gives deep contentment. Although in the background there is suffering going on. So two things. When the training gets tough, we need to know when the going gets tough, the tough get going. So when our going gets tough, we need to remember one thing, that our karma is getting exhausted. Second, if we sustain, there is a deep peace that we can experience. And third, that suffering that you are going through, because you are a sincere practitioner, you should know that Krishna is giving that so that pure devotional service's confidentiality is protected and maintained. See, pure devotional service is very confidential and very rare. So this kind of puts away some people from jumping into pure devotional service. They are automatically, there is a filtration, because pure devotional service purchases Krishna. Krishna will be purchased by a pure devotee. It's not so easily available. There will be a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of filters. So that way, in one sense, when devotees go through suffering, it protects the confidentiality of pure devotional service. And fourthly, very important, Krishna is training us to learn to exclusively depend on him, not on anything else. I've seen devotees, we take shelter of Vastu, astrology, numerology, which is all needed. But at some point of time, if you're a sincere practitioner, you'll be brought to your knees, where none of this will help. And at some point of time, you'll have to say, Krishna, I'm yours. Krishna, please help me. So to make us come to that stage, sometimes we go through something. So this is all under the first point. What is the first point? So basically, we are discussing 3 points on how this is Krishna's plan when we go through suffering. And the first is Krishna is training us to come back to spiritual world, right? And that is his training. And when the training gets tough, this is what we have to remember, that how our karma is getting exhausted and we experience deep satisfaction, and pure devotional service confidentiality is protected, and Krishna is training us how to depend exclusively on him and nothing else. This is the first principle. Everybody clear? The second principle you have to remember when we go through suffering is, in material world, you cannot avoid suffering, whoever you are. You just cannot avoid it. Whatever you do, we cannot avoid it. Some basic suffering will always be there. I don't know if you have copper pot in your house, copper vessels there. Like we have. I just cleaned it with that pitambari and with that, क्या बोलते हैं अपना इमली का पानी से उसको अच्छे से धोया, उसको रखा, एक हफ्ता उसको रखा है, I didn't even touch it, just kept it there. After 24 hours, it becomes dark. So by virtue of being in this world, it gets contaminated. Temple hall, how many of you, you have all gone to the temple hall? Evening 4:30, we clean it so nicely, 4 o'clock. Morning 4 o'clock, we see so much dirt. When we do the temple hall cleaning, there's so much dirt at morning 4 o'clock. And then morning 9:30, again we clean. So much dirt we get. And then evening 4 o'clock we clean, again we get so much. 3 times in a day we clean, and each time we get so much dirt. And during COVID, when nobody was coming to temple, that time also there was so much dirt. So the point I'm saying is, by virtue of being in this world, there is, see, as long as you're alive, suffering is part of being in this world. So it is actually a useless exhibition of false ego when we try to be happy and try to be controller of this world, because nahi ho sakta. Material life is ambivalent and it is also relative. We can't. So sometimes you'll see devotees suffer, and sometimes you'll see that a hardcore materialistic, they are happy. So you just can't figure out. See, material life is a struggle. See, as soon as we are born, there is, I think last time I discussed, fear is wrapped around our false ego. Last time I discussed in great detail. As soon as we are born, the pain body is created. And fear is wrapped around our false ego. So fear is an integral part of our existence. It is bound to our false ego. So either explicitly or implicitly, we are driven by our fears. And because of that, we are suffering. Fear brings ahara nidra bhaya maitunam, and that bhaya always brings suffering. In fact, in Uddhav Gita, we have a powerful verse. I want you to repeat after me. This is an amazing, amazing verse in the Bhagavatam. When you hear the meaning, you will be like, Acha, I saw it. Very beautiful verse. Na dehinam sukam kinche vidyate vidusham api tata cha dukkam mudanam vrita ahankaranam param. Krishna is telling Uddhav, na dehinam sukam kinche. Sometimes thoda bhi sukh nahi milta hai. किसे? Vidyate vidusham api. Very good people and very intelligent people. Sometimes they don't get even little bit of happiness. Tata cha dukkham mudanam. Similarly, foolish and unintelligent people, they don't get even little distress. Vrita ahankaranam param. अरे ये अहंकार का जो driven pursuit है खुशी का वो छोड़ दो. Krishna is telling Uddhav that give up this useless exhibition of false ego, trying to be a controller and conqueror and being happy, because you cannot get happiness. So this is the second principle, that suffering you cannot avoid. First is, it is training by Krishna for us to go back home, back to spiritual world. Second is this. And third is, when we go through suffering, we have to remember Krishna is teaching us Tam Titikshasva Bharata. Second chapter principle. What is that? Tolerate. Tolerate. In fact, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, in one purport in the 11th canto I was reading, he says if devotees don't learn to tolerate the reactions which are coming because of their prarabdha, if we don't learn to tolerate, then we will again go back to our impious life, our sinful life. So tolerance is a very, very important part of devotional service. So we see in the first canto, we'll find later on, Dharma will tell in the form of bull. It is very difficult to trace the cause of our suffering. Very complicated. So therefore, be happy. It's very, very, just be absorbed in Krishna's plan. Jayananda Prabhu's story I was saying in Chitrakoot Yatra recently. Jayananda Prabhu is Srila Prabhupada's disciple. How many of you know who is Jayananda Prabhu? What is he famous for? Rath Yatra. In every Rath Yatra, you will see his photo is kept. He was a young boy, very talented, intelligent, engineering student. He came to Srila Prabhupada. Whatever money he had, he gave all the money to Srila Prabhupada. And then he started working in the daytime. Night he was driving taxi. He was running the temple single-handedly. He was earning money to run the temple. And from childhood, he only lived his life for others. From the dog, even street dogs, he would remove the ticks and fleas from the dogs' bodies. Even street dogs. He was like, we cannot tolerate our suffering. He couldn't tolerate even a dog suffering. He was always serving others and taking care of others. That is the difference between us and an advanced devotee. So what he was doing, Jayananda Prabhu, when he joined the temple, he was always serving. And he got cancer. And everybody was bewildered. How can such a nice devotee, and he is just 34 years old, how can such a nice devotee who is doing whole day seva and always happy, always serving Krishna, devotees, and he's getting cancer? And when he was in the bedridden in the hospital, devotees asked him, what is your favorite food item? They wanted to get cauliflower, because he likes cauliflower pakoda. So they brought cauliflower pakoda, and he knows he can't eat it. So he took all of that, and then he started distributing it to all the other people in the hospital. Always serving. Even in that situation, he's thinking of how to please others. So like this, he was going on, and then eventually he left his body because of cancer. Now you may think, what is this Krishna doing? What is this plan of Krishna? What is kind of suffering is this? But we don't know how Krishna is protecting, how Krishna is taking care. Because this is 1977 we are talking about. And then what happened? 30 years passed. Year 2007. In Colorado, in US, There was one Mataji called Kalindi Mataji. She was a hospice nurse. You know what is the difference between a hospice and a hospital, right? Hospice is where you go and you don't come back. Hospital, you want to come back. But hospice, you are going to leave your body. So she was a nurse in a hospice in Colorado, and she was going for her work every day. And one day she got a realization in the heart that why I should hide my identity as a devotee. I am an initiated devotee, Kalindi Devi Dasi disciple, I think Chandramali Maharaj disciple. So she said, let me put on my tilak and kantimala and go. Anyway, it's hospice, people are dying. So she put kantimala and tilak and went to the hospice that day. And she was taking care of one elderly Mataji who was dying. She was taking care of her. And when the Mataji saw her kantimala, she became very happy. She said Hare Krishna. And then Kalindi Mataji chanted Hare Krishna and giving her some Charanamrita or something. She left that lady, elderly lady, left her body. And then that elderly lady's relatives were there. One young boy, teenager came and he said, oh, you are Hare Krishna. So Kalindi Mataji said, you know Hare Krishna? So this boy said, yeah, mummy. He called his mom. And his mother came, was a little, elderly, little middle-aged lady, that boy's mother. She said, and this lady who came, it was her mother who just died. So this lady asked Kalindi Mataji, you are Hare Krishna? She said, yeah, I am Hare Krishna. So, do you know Jayananda? So she said, Jayananda, the Jayananda, the legend whose photo is put in every Rath Yatra. So this lady said, yes, I am Jayananda's sister and she is his mother. That means, how Krishna took care. Jayanand Prabhu, when he must have left home, he must have come, तो लगा होगा अरे मेरी माँ का कौन देखेगा, क्या होगा, मदर के बारे में कुछ तो दुख हुआ रहेगा उसको. And he was serving Krishna full time. Look at how Krishna reciprocated. 30 years later, when his mother was dying, there was a devotee who was giving his mother Krishna. Now, because she put tilak and kantimala and went, that's why we know the story. There are so many, what I'm saying is there may be so many examples that Krishna is taking care. We may not know because it's obvious nahi hoga. And it may not be a legendary devotee like Jayananda Prabhu. And it may not be a devotee with kantimala and tilak. We may not know the story. But how Krishna may tell someone Hare Krishna? कौन कैसे कृष्ण किसके जीवन में आते हैं? See, I go for book distribution. I have to go. I went in 1999. I remember once I was going in Bombay Central Station, Golden Temple Express. I was distributing books like any other day. I distributed. Some people took books. Some people did not take books. So many said Hare Krishna. Then I came back to temple, and that train went to Amritsar. And the next day it met with an accident, and many people died. And it came in the newspapers. And the next day morning, I went to Radhakrishna Prabhu. I'm seeing headlines: Golden Temple crash, and then so many people died. I said, "Hare, 8 book distribution किया." So many people got books. So many people said Hare Krishna. So कितने लोगों का spiritual life begin हो गया रहेगा? कैसे? See, what I'm saying, we don't know how we are being used by Krishna, where people are getting connected to Krishna, how their spiritual journey is catapulting to the next level. We have no idea, but Krishna is taking care. So if we know how our suffering is for the last time and Krishna is protecting us through all these points that I mentioned, then our suffering will give us less pain. That is the point. So this knowledge, what we are discussing, is very important. See, in a hospital, there are 2 beds. And both the patients in patient A and patient B, both are screaming in pain. And you are seeing both are same. But the difference is patient A in that bed, he knows what is his disease and he knows what is the treatment. The diagnosis is done and the treatment has started. The patient B is also screaming in pain, but his disease is not known. All experiments are going on. So externally, both are screaming in pain, but who is better off? Because that knowledge, that hope is there. Similarly, we are suffering, but if we align our lives to our values, to Krishna conscious values, and we understand how Krishna is compassionate and Krishna is loving, then our suffering is for the last time. And we can tolerate our situation. Next class, we will continue. Because after all this, I know another question that comes in your mind. That was, ये सब तो ठीक है, but practically how we can get relief from suffering? We want relief also, no? At the end of the day, we want some relief. So next week, we will discuss the 5 things we could do. Even if you can't do all the 5, Even if you do one of the five, and even if you can't do one of the five, even if you do little of one of the five, you will get instant relief from suffering. Because all that philosophy is good, what we are sharing, but आप बोलोगे प्रभु जी but बहुत तकलीफ होती है, थोड़ा तो सुकून चाहिए. So what are the five things we could do when we are in the middle of suffering? We will discuss in our next class as we continue this verse number 17 के ऊपर. We'll continue our discussion. I'll stop here. Hare Krishna. Any questions or comments? Don't ask me what are those five things. That तो ये class पूरा हो गया आज का. नंबर चाहिए आपको? मैंने अभी याद आया तो मैंने आते आते लिख दिया मेरे उसमें. अभी मेरे को नंबर याद नहीं आ रहा. मैंने ऐसे लिख दिया इसमें नोट्स में.
11, 10, 18.
न देहिनां सुखं किंचित् विद्यते विदुषामपि तथा च दुःखं मूढानां मृताहंकरणं परं. भैया
11, 10, 18.
yes, is that okay, Madan Mohan Prabhu?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful verse. मतलब इतना बुद्धिमान व्यक्ति है, सफरिंग एंड इतना नालायक आदमी है, वो खुश है. तो कृष्णा बोल रहे हैं उद्धव को, अरे क्या तुम खुशी के लिए. And there's another verse in third canto. We'll end with this. You can repeat after me. यश्च मूढतमा लोके यश्च बुद्धे परां गता बाहुबौ सुखमेदेते क्लिश्यत अंतर्हितो जना. यश्च मूढतमा लोग, एकदम नालायक, मूढ़, मूर्ख, तामसिक, और यश्च बुद्धे परां गता, शुद्ध भक्त भगवान. वाउबो सुखम देते, दोनों बहुत सुखी हैं. क्लिश्यत अंतर्हितो जना, जो बीच में है, आसमान से गिरा खजूर पे लटका. मिडिल जो है, जो प्योर डिवोटी भी नहीं है और प्योर मटेरियलिस्ट भी नहीं है. क्लिश्यत अंतर्हितो जना इज ऑलवेज सफरिंग, इज ऑलवेज इन एंजाइटी. That's why because I am identifying myself with that category, and all of you also, I am taking liberty in judging you that you are in that category. So I am discussing what are the things we could do, what are the principles we have to remember, what are the practical things we could do. So like that. We'll stop. Anything else? Anybody wants? Yes.
Only this information said, like, you have to take that, take too much stuff, and get the stuff. But sometimes, actually, we may not want to come to this, like, say that we just want to get our material kind of things, or whatever, like, emotions or mind. You just want to, you just want to be building at a material level. You should be happy, mind should be, we should get to the. So our idea is that protect ourselves, so that we, we don't want to firstly okay, we don't think that way. So how do you, like, at a mundane level, how do you think that?
How do you?
Understand?
So you are saying that we want to come, we should see suffering as an attempt to bring us closer to Krishna, but we don't want to come closer to Krishna. We just want to get some relief from our suffering. We want to be comfortable. So how do we see that?
Yeah.
I don't know how to see it. I'm assuming here that, so yeah, we may not want that, but you are sincerely practicing bhakti, right? You are chanting, you are fulfilling your vows. See, right now you may be overwhelmed by your situation. आपका जो situation है ना, that is overwhelming you right now. Your health, your finances. But somewhere deep within, you are sincerely, you are giving your time for Krishna every day. You are chanting, you are going for Sankirtan. So you may, out of your humility, think that you are not Krishna conscious, but you are, and Krishna is doing his best. Because you're not remembering Krishna, you are thinking of your body, your finances. So Krishna is giving the suffering so that you tell Krishna, Krishna, क्या चल रहा है? Krishna, maybe I'm forgetting you. Krishna, let me come back to you. See, we have, Indra Prabhu says, we could either be a dog or we could be a lion. He says, when you throw a bone at a dog, the dog gets obsessed with that bone. He starts playing with that bone. He starts eating that bone. Right? Dog becomes overwhelmed. We become very happy with that bone. But that same bone you throw at a lion, will the lion look at the bone? The lion will look at the thrower of the bone. And he will stare at that person very nicely and for long. Acha beta, tu mere ko pheka. So he says, Indra Prabhu says, so are you a dog or are you a lion? So many of us are a dog. When Krishna is throwing that bone, is compared to what? difficulties, challenges, or suffering, when that suffering is thrown on us, we are like the dog. We are obsessed with that situation. But we have to become lion. We have to see the thrower of the bone, Krishna. ये क्यों फेंक रहा है कृष्ण? क्या कर रहे हैं हमारे साथ? So that is the training in bhakti, to see the person behind the situation, to see what is happening in my life. We are generally caught up. महाराज से एक बहुत famous lecture है 5-star series में, one of my favorites. He says devotee's problem is we are caught up by our circumstances. Don't get caught up. मतलब चित्रकेतु महाराज was caught up. He was so attached to that one queen only who gave him that child. He ignored all the other queens and then they poisoned the child. So we were not suffering. So Maharaj says, if you don't want suffering, see, he says you have to go through suffering, but when you go through suffering, you can become almost pure devotee. Maharaj says in one class. Because in the 6th canto, 9th chapter, 44 verse, purport Prabhupada says that demigods, because they were crying for Krishna, they became almost pure devotees. So these demigods killed Vishwarup and they did horrible things, but still they became almost pure devotees because they cried for Krishna. So Maharaj says suffering is so powerful that suffering can make you cry so much for Krishna that you can become a pure devotee. Then Maharaj knew our mind. He says, so you may be thinking that you don't want to go through so much suffering and crying, and still you want to become pure devotee. So then don't be caught up by your circumstances. Don't be so much obsessed with your health, with your finances. थोड़ा बहुत time निकाल के. See, look at the person throwing the bone. So that's what you have to do. And if somebody says, I can't do it, Prabhuji, how to become determined? Then Prabhupada said, if you are not determined, you are an animal. Because one devotee said, Prabhupada, how to chant Hare Krishna? Prabhupada said, you should be determined to chant Hare Krishna. What if I'm not determined to chant Hare Krishna? Prabhupada said, you should be determined. But Prabhupada, what if I don't have determination? Then you are an animal. So some questions we have no answer. How come? We just have to. Okay, we'll stop here. It's 8:40. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.